Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Cold Hard Sports Talk with your hosts, Matty B and Woodsy.
Alrighty, boys, time for our interview today. Our guest is from Vancouver, BC, former fifth-round pick of the Edmonton Oilers in the 1992 NHL entry draft, former WHLer, AHLer, NHLer, and international star. This is Joaquin Gage, is our guest today. How's it going?
It's really good. I can't believe the extent of your research team to really go through my hockey DB. That's quite impressive, you guys. Nice to meet you, Jake and Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, I had to do my research. We got all of our research crews on, all of our guests to make sure we know every detail that we need to, right?
Definitely put in the man hours on this one.
Please don't say that. There's some things I think we should keep for a different type of podcast. Yeah. But we'll keep it so the kids can listen to this. Hopefully they can gain something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so Vancouver boy, from the coast, must be nice for being out there, and you start kind of your junior career playing in what is now the BCHL, but what was then the BCJHL. What was the kind of process from going from minor hockey up to, trying to play junior and that sort of thing?
Man, that's an unbelievable question. And I don't know how much time, I don't know how much time we have, but as you guys are of a younger vintage than I am, the lower mainland of BC was a little bit different hockey-wise compared to the prairies. And you'll know one name in particular was Paul Correa. So I grew up playing against Paul. He was a year younger than I was, but very tough to really judge how you were going to do as a professional compared to Prairie Boys, where they kind of looked as playing hockey, compared to Vancouver, Richmond, and Langley, things like that. It was a completely different mindset, and I found that out later on as my career kind of progressed as a young man. But very different. It was a lot of fun. I played in some tournaments, played against the Niedermeyer brothers. I'm trying to think of NHL people that people would recognize from, but it seemed like most of the really successful NHL players didn't come from Vancouver besides Paul. I mean, I was considered quite good when I was young, and Paul and I were on the same level, but that didn't last that long. I think it only lasted a few years. And Paul, I was actually good friends with. There's a funny story. He lived in the North Shore of Vancouver, and I played in Coquitlam, I think, at the time. And we played in a tournament, and Paul's mom was handing out the medals at the end of the tournament, and everyone was shaking hands with Paul's mom, and I kissed Paul's mom on the cheek as I think I was 10 or something like that. And she was so taken aback, but to this day she'll always remember Joaquin. And even to the point when Paul obviously surpassed me on a professional level, Paul's mom came to my parents' house at one point and talked to my parents about the next level and becoming a professional, and my parents wanted to hear what she said from her standpoint, how Paul's career was going and how mine was progressing at the time. And I don't think that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have kissed Paul Correa's mom on the cheek at a tournament when I was quite young, and she was taken with me, and that relationship kind of still stands to this day.
So because you kissed Paul Correa's mom, you became an NHLer. in a roundabout way?
There's a lot of things that go into that, I think, but I think if I look back, that kind of set me towards the path. I don't know how you guys are with Marvel movies and Infinity
That's the
Stones,
butterfly effect there.
it's exactly the butterfly effect of doing something when you're quite younger, and then progressing and seeing the fruits of your labor, so to speak.
Oh, that's good. So when you tried to go play junior, when you were looking at going to play junior, what was kind of your options? And was the WHL always something you wanted to do?
Really, as a young hockey, I didn't have any idea how it actually progressed. I didn't know. I loved playing hockey, and so um, I wasn't the best in school, but I knew it was getting consistently harder for me to excel at my education and hockey at the same time. And I actually went to the Athol Murray College of Notre Dame in outside of Regina. So um, after going out there and playing, I realized how, oh my gosh, there's a lot of, and there was always the dream of playing it. I was one of those. I didn't make the Tim Hortons commercial of sitting in front of the TV watching the Leafs play the Habs, but I was one of those kids. Okay, so um, but realizing how much better there were hockey players throughout Canada were better than I was, and I'm saying defensemen, forwards, goalies, and realizing this whole situation that I was in. So um, that was my big eye opener when I went there as a 13-year-old to play. And lucky enough for me, I actually played on the Bantam AAA team, and the junior team was full of, I believe there was 14 players that got NCAA college scholarships that year. So Rod Brendamore, you would know, Curtis Joseph. I was chumming around with Cujo when I was 14 years old, and he was 20. So fast forward a bunch of years, all of a sudden he's my roommate in the NHL. So weird, complete. It's a small world, the hockey world, but that really changed my the way I looked at hockey from that point. But to answer your question to the WHL, at that point I thought I was NCAA because that's what my mentors kind of looked like, right? So, and I mean, this is a really long story, but I can't compare myself to Michael Jordan, but I did get cut off my midget AAA team. Okay, so
Okay,
our
that's
paths
fair.
kind of went different, but at Notre Dame, I didn't make the midget AAA team, and my one of my best friends at the time, we started phoning WHL teams, and the Kamloops Blazers actually said, "Yeah, we'll invite you to camp." And I was playing midget AA in the Southern Saskatchewan midget AA league, and I went to the Kamloops Blazers tryout camp the next year.
Holy crap! And well, you ended up going to the Portland Winterhawks, is where the dub kind of started for you. Just talk about going to Portland and playing hockey in Portland for a few seasons as a goalie there, and just what it was like playing for the Winterhawks.
Okay, well, this is my inspiration. I've got this nailed down. This
Okay.
this speech. Okay, so this is okay. I've got this pre-practice for this,
Okay.
but the fine line of making it and not making it are so infinite. It's razor thin. Okay, so I I went to Kamloops that year, and they had two goalies that were two of the top goalies in junior goalies in the world at that time, and Corey Hirsch and Dale Masson. And I ended up staying on that team until October, which was unheard of, really. And it's really hard for a goalie to make a team after October at that point because teams have their place. So I bounced around here and there, and I tell this to young goalies, especially the guys that want to make it, and it's the and we hear these stories all the time, and I don't think it resonates with a lot of people, but I always get drawn into them so much because I was without a team, just bouncing around from the BC Junior League at this time, and I phoned the Bellingham Ice Hawks. Okay, and the only reason I did this is because they were in the last place of the BC Junior League. Their goalies had inflated numbers, and I talked to the coach, and he said, "Come down the next day." Good thing, because Vancouver to Bellingham, I had no place to play, and I had bounced around, and I went down there, and he said, "Get in net," and he stood right beside the net and watched me the whole practice, and he said, "Yep, you're better than that guy. You're playing next game." And this is crazy. Like, I'm like, okay, so I'm a 17-year-old kid, and we went to Nanaimo, and I played a game, and we won 2-1, and I think they just dominated the whole game, and I stopped like 52 of 53 shots. Okay. But at that point, the Portland Winterhawks were playing the Victoria Cougars at the time, and their GM and coach came up to watch the game in Nanaimo. Then the next day, I was traded for Travis Green from Portland Winterhawks, and they had my rights because Kamloops held my rights. And the next year, I went to Portland, got drafted. So it went from me, am I even going to do this do I want to do this, to giving it one more shot, and it just worked out. And I went to Portland next year, got drafted played the year in Portland and got drafted by the Oilers in the 5th round the next year.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So what was the draft like? Did you end up going to the draft? Just tell us about the draft process and getting drafted and just all that stuff that comes with it. Because let's get real. Jake and I have never been drafted to anything.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys are interested in draft, but it's the beer kind.
Okay. That's the kind of draft. Yeah.
All right. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. But I was, I again, the kid in front of the TV, watching TV, and Don Cherry saying, "If you're not rated in the 1st round, don't go." Right. So I'm like, oh gosh. And that was it was so ridiculous, because I was playing in the WHL, and I thought I might go NCAA, but I had found out that, well, I could still go to a Canadian university too. So it did that resonated with me. But with I didn't know really how the whole process went, and my parents had come down, and all of a sudden everyone's talking, well, it's his draft year, what does he think, what's going to happen? I'm like, drafted really to the NHL? This is what happens? And I shit you guys not, I had no idea what this entailed. And so all of a sudden I grab a Hockey News, and my name's in there, and that was so special to me. And I still have all those clippings at my mom's house. So those young
scrapbooks.
Like saying I'm here, there, and whatever. But yes, I did go to the draft. And
okay.
I didn't want to go, and it was in Montreal. It was in the old Montreal Forum. The Montreal Forum in the summertime without air conditioning, not the best place to be. Okay, so this is a brand new suit I'm wearing, and the only one that looks good at that point, and worrying about if there's sweat marks on the back if I ever get called. That was my biggest concern at the draft. And unfortunately, in 92, that was the first year that Russians were coming over. The first round took over 3 hours, a little bit over 3 hours. So let's just say there were sweat marks in that suit, but it's a good thing I didn't go until the 5th round, because I was able to dry myself off a little bit.
Roman Hammerlick and Alexei Yashin were actually the top 2 picks that year. So being in a draft with some pretty big names, I guess, eh?
Hammerlick sat 4 seats over from me. So yeah, I'm sitting there, and he gets called, and I'm just like, oh my God, am I going in the 1st round?
The cameras come up right beside you.
Yeah, I was like, oh, what's happening here? I didn't think I played that well, but yeah. And who was it? Darius Kasparaitis was right below me, so
Okay.
it was a completely crazy draft, and so many players that went on. Unfortunately, there was a few of my friends that were there that did have good professional careers, but never even got drafted, and they were there, and I was like, um, it was at that point it wasn't 2 days, it was one day, and they took a break after the fifth round, and I was getting a little bit worried, but lucky enough for me, the Oilers took a chance on me in the fifth round, so I didn't have to worry about the second after the break.
And you finish out your WHL career, but I wanted to talk about you getting going to Prince Albert for your final year of junior. As a lot of our listeners know, Prince Albert's it's a hockey town, really. What was it like playing in Prince Albert in those days, and just how cool was it being in a town that had so much passion for their boys?
It was a culture shock at first because, well, coming from the Winterhawks, where at that point in Portland, they had the Trailblazers. We played where they played, so we were. I don't want to put us on the level of the Trailblazers, but we were considered quite big in the town, and then going to a small Canadian market for the first time, a huge eye opener. But it was better for me being a young male to be in that kind of atmosphere. I really enjoyed Prince Albert, and I think because I had gone to Athol Murray and been a Hound for so many years, that the winter, the way it looked, I felt like I was kind of home a little bit in a weird way, just because I had experienced all that before, and going into the cold rinks, that smell. I mean, the smell of the Zamboni and the diesel in an old rink, it's weird to explain, but you only know that if you're a hockey player, and so many, like, even now, if I go into a small rink and I play men's league, or I'm helping out with minor kids, like, the amount of memories that come flooding into my brain at that point, I'm surprised I don't pass out because it's an awesome feeling.
Yeah. That rink has not changed one bit, by the way. a little bit of changes with the seats, I think, but it's still almost the exact same, I think.
Yeah. The yellow, green, and they had to change that. Every time I watch it on TSN and see it, and I'm like, is that the same rink? But yeah, it is. And then I'm like,
and after that, another culture shock, because you get to go play in Edmonton for the Oilers, but you mainly played in Cape Breton, which is nice in itself. So talk about kind of like your first year and maybe your first game in the NHL, and kind of the holy shit factor, I'm actually here.
Well, that's my first year of playing professional hockey was the first lockout year, right? So I was the American League was beefed up a little bit that year, but now that I kind of think about it, the American League was a different league back then. There was a lot of lifers in the American League. Jody Gage. There's a bunch of players that. There's a funny story about Jody Gage. He was a icon in Rochester, but he had the same last name as me, and I ordered my first professional set of sticks, and he was a forward, and my first professional sticks came, and my trainer goes, "Yeah, your sticks are in." And being a first year pro, I'm so excited to get these sticks, but they were Jody Gage's sticks, and I shoot left, he shoots right, and it was even the wrong way to shoot. But the American League was a different way different type of league. More established guys, older guys, and then you had a bunch of young guys that probably wouldn't have started the year in the American League. So, I mean, the names escape me now, but the amount of players that you would have seen playing in the American League that year, you wouldn't have seen in a normal year. So the American League was really beefed up. So that was a huge eye opener for me to how good these players are and how high I had to progress my game to a level if I wanted to get to where I was. But I was fortunate enough to play a ton of games in the American League. Got called up at the end of the year, but it was different because the NHL season had been staggered compared to our season was done, and there were still a few games in the NHL. So there was probably about, I would say 8 to 12 games left in the regular season. And Edmonton was in a kind of a playoff hunt, but I was basically, as we all know now, the taxi squatting it. So our routine with our 8 guys was, and Jake, you will know this. It was Northlands or Rexall or Sky Reach at the time. I can't remember.
I still remember it as Sky Reach. I remember that.
Yeah. So it was, we would skate before and completely get destroyed. And then the big boys would come out. We would go off. We would get in our rental car and go down 75th Street in Edmonton, hit Arby's, which is, I think now is a Carl's Jr., and we'd load up on beef and cheddars, and then just go a little bit further more south and hit Millwoods Golf Course and play 18 or 36, depending on how we felt, and then go back to the hotel and just be kids, right? So one day we did this, and I mean, I think you guys are too young to realize this, but in hotel rooms, that when you got a message on the old rotary phone, there was a little orange light blinking.
Yeah.
And so I had gotten back from 18 holes and Arby's beef and cheddars, and I don't know why, but I kind of woke up and I saw my orange light blinking, and it was a message from Sparky, famous trainer from the Edmonton. Hey, Billy's hurt. You got to get over here. So I race over to Northlands, and this is my first game, and the Oilers are in a playoff hunt, and I get into the room. I get all my stuff on in about 5 minutes. I get out on to warm up with maybe minute and a half left. I trip, fall, slide into center. So, and
almost like the old skate guard thing, eh?
Oh, there's a sound that the crowd makes. It's kind of face palming your hand, and that was the sound that was made at that point. And I slid out there and I got in for like 2 or 3 shots, and I go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I'm in the NHL and the game's happening, and then all of a sudden we're playing the Maple Leafs at the time, and Fred Brathwaite, good friend of mine, great goalie, didn't have his best outing. Okay, and so there's a few. I think it was 3-0 after the first, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I might even actually go in there. And Ron Lowe at the time walked past me a few times. I go, oh, he's not picking me, but he did. I've talked to him later on, and he did this on purpose. He didn't want me to worry about it too much, and so probably I would say about 38 to 42 seconds before we're going out, he goes, Gager, you're in. I'm like, oh. And I was more worried about finding my mask at this point. And so went in, and we came back in the game. And I actually, there's a list, and I was fortunate enough to do some Sportsnet panels this year. And there's a short list of goalies who actually have registered points in their first game. So I'm on a list of like 9. My other NHL records aren't the best, but I did assist on Shane Corson's goal, and it was bad because there was a shot, and I let out a horrible rebound to Dave Andrechuk. He got the rebound, and I made the save, and it went to, I think, Doug Waite. He gave it to Corse scores, and I can't. I wish.
All part of the plan.
I really wish everyone could feel what I felt at this point, because I made 2 big saves. Crowd's going nuts. We score a goal, but then they announced my name on the second assist, and that was something special because the crowd went absolutely nuts because we're in a playoff hunt, blah blah blah. Goalie gets pulled, I come in, I make a couple saves, and I assist on a goal that brings us within reach of the Leafs. And so that was, I tell people this, I thought it was all Stanley Cups and Vezinas after this. Like, this is
Great
What a
start
way
to
to
the
start.
league, eh?
yeah, this is the way it's going to go. But it didn't go that way, but very memorable first NHL game.
Do you remember your first start?
That was it. That was my
your
first.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, the next game was my first start against Calgary. So
Okay, against Calgary even.
yeah, I played. Yeah, my second game was my first Battle of Alberta. So, and it was against my junior kind of idol was Trevor Kidd, and so I'm skating
Okay.
around and seeing how Trevor prepares for this game, and I'm like, geez, this guy's really intense. And but I unfortunately we lost that game too. And but I just remember the feeling of the Saddledome when they fire that flame, and you know, they always say the red light hitting the back of your neck as a goalie. That's the first time I actually felt that feeling of the, it was actual fire, but it didn't feel too good. But it was a great initiation to the NHL.
And
So I wanted to backtrack here real quick before we get too far away from it. With the Cape Breton Oilers, you played with one player specifically I wanted to ask about, and that would be Dennis Bondby, the AHL all-time leader in PIMS, one of the toughest guys ever in the history of hockey. I just want to ask what, a guy like that is like.
Dennis, I don't know. Remember a few years ago with the last game at Rexall, right? So we had that game, and that was so much fun for me personally, and I think for a lot of other people, because I hadn't seen Dennis in 15, 16 years, and actually I was just meeting with a friend of mine who played with Dennis too, and we've actually just talked about some of the stories with Dennis. But man, what a character. And we actually lived together in Edmonton when we played here, and Dennis was, I don't know, how do I describe Dennis? Dennis was, there's tough guys you play with, and I would say, like, I played with Big George Laraque, right?
Yeah.
And George didn't like to fight. Like, he didn't like that role. He would much rather have played a hard nose role. Dennis, on the other hand, wanted to fight every guy on the other team. And it was scary. And he loved it. And he would do anything for every other teammate on his team. It was, and enforcers were different when I played, but man, he was a different type of guy. Like, we hear guys getting, oh, we're playing this team, I gotta go up against that guy, I gotta go against that guy. Dennis was completely different. He couldn't wait to get out there and put himself against other guys. I remember it was exhibition season, and there was a face-off. We're playing Chicago, and Bob Probert's on the team, and Dennis looks over at Proby and goes, Proby, you're gonna make me or break me. Let's do this thing. And they fought, and Proby goes, yep, let's do it. And I couldn't, like, for Bob Probert to do that in exhibition to a guy, that's a different thing to do. And they had a miraculous fight. But man, it's funny how fans kind of endure tough guys, goal scorers, or goalies. And let's just say it was good to have Dennis on my wing, because I always felt safe, and everyone always liked us.
Yeah, on and off the ice.
On and off the ice. Yeah. Let's. I rode Dennis's coattails for a little bit. Let's just say that.
And through the next year, you're starting to play more in the NHL with the Oilers, kind of still a little bit up and down though. Did you start thinking like, okay, I'm starting to get more and more here. I'm starting to be able to do this thing. I think I can do this.
Yeah, I did. I did. Maybe that was being too young. And this is and I don't want to say that like I I tried as hard as possibly I could to have played in the NHL. I did need help. I came in at a time where, I mean, you see goalie coaches and structure and things like I coach at goalie clinics, and I'm so amazed at the technical level of goalies, and I wish I could have had that. But um, the I basically made the NHL on my own, and I had to learn as I went. And I was good enough to make the NHL, but I wasn't good enough to stay at that point. That didn't come till later, and I think at that point I could have been too old, or I was one of those goalies that needed to play a little bit more. I couldn't sit on the bench for say 2-3 weeks and go in and perform. It's a very difficult thing to do. I needed to be in a situation, like, unfortunately for me, my goaltending partners in the NHL were Bill Ranford when he had just come off winning the Canada Cup.
Yeah, he's okay.
I think Curtis Joseph again.
Another okay goalie.
So he was all right. You know, could make the first save, the second save, maybe even the third. Throw out his paddle on Nieuwendyk, things like that. And then I bounced around the minors, Team Canada. Then I came back, and then the time I came back with Edmonton in 2001, Tommy Salo, I would argue, was probably top 5 goalies in the world at that point too. And so Craig McTavish was funny. One day he called me into the office and we were talking, and he said, I'd like to play you more, but and I mean, I'm on a team with Ryan Smith, Doug Wade, Bill Guerin, Jason Smith. Like we had a pretty good team, and he goes, it's very hard for a coach to take out his best player for someone else to play.
Right.
And I was basically there in a supportive role, and I couldn't, in my starts that year, I couldn't install the comfort for my head coach to think I could do the job if something happened to Tommy.
Yeah. The one guy you kind of mentioned there that I think Jake and I both, watched growing up was Ryan Smith. What was he like? Like, we all know Captain Canada. Like, we all know kind of Smitty, out in the public. But like, what is Ryan Smith like?
He's he's simple, but
Okay,
don't take that the wrong way. Like his
Small
hockey,
town Alberta boy.
Yeah. Like, that's what he knows.
Okay.
He knows hockey, and he knows fans. Like, you're not going to get any kind of current events kind of conversation with him. But if you want to talk about the power play and stuff like that, and kids and family, that's the guy you want to talk to. I mean, okay, so I'll tell a story about Smitty. He might get mad about this, but so the old Northlands, there's the Agricom across the street where the Expo Center is now, people getting shots. So sometimes we would practice there, and Dave Semenko was one of our assistant coaches, would come out for help at practice and things like that. But one of the big pranks would be guys staying there, and guys would take their shoes back, so you had to walk back with sock feet across the skywalk over the. So we're out there late. Of course, we get back in the room, and there's all our shoes are gone. So everyone's pissed. Everybody. I mean, I think Dave still had his shoes though. No one took Dave. If there was a 27 on a shoe, no one was taking that. But the trainers were going back in the cube van. Okay, so bright idea. Let's jump in the cube van. We're not walking back on our sock feet, right? So we all jump in the cube van, and so there's probably about 10 or 15 of us in the cube van. And Doug Waite, Bill Guerin, all the big dogs are already back and shit. So, but Semenko was helping out practice, so he's in the back of the cube van too. So we're all, and so guys are hanging their legs out the back. The door is up, and the reason why there's something's going on at Northlands, right? So we're driving back, and we're driving by these semis, and I see the Cookie Monster and Elmo and Big Bird, right?
Oh no.
So all of a sudden, Ryan Smith says, why aren't, oh, well, let's just say everyone's mad about the shoes. Who took the shoes? Who took the shoes, right? We're going to find out who took these shoes. So we're in there, and Ryan Smith's going, why? And Big Bird's passing by, and Ryan Smitty says, why aren't we practicing at Northlands? And so we've all seen all these animals, these Muppets go by, and we're all kind of, and then from the back of this cube van, we're sitting alone is Semenko, and all of a sudden, like, no one says a thing, and then all of a sudden we hear, I guess we know who's not heading up the shoe investigation. Semenko was really dry and really funny, but oh my god, that was an awesome time, and that we laughed for the next 300 meters of Semenko's one-liner, because he didn't say much, but when he said something, it was profound.
So he's like, I wonder why we're not practicing there. Why do you think? Like,
why do you think? Yeah, we're all thinking, well, there's Sesame Streets at the Coliseum, and like we were all stunned, but then Semenko with the one-liner, it was perfect.
Oh, that's so good. I love that, because I think Jake would agree with me. We grew up, and like Ryan Smith got me as an Oilers fan.
Oh, for sure. The championship to our fantasy hockey league, we named it the Ryan Smith Cup.
Exactly. So,
oh man, so one of the best times of playing hockey is sometimes not even in the NHL, but the Comrie brothers used to have what's called the Braggers Cup, and we would play a summer league. We'd work out and then go play hockey, and we'd split up teams. But the Comrie brothers would do this thing where the last game they would pick teams, and they would have this cup that kind of emulated the Stanley Cup. So I hate to say it, but one of the best games I ever played was in this Braggers Cup at I think it was at Tipton Arena in Edmonton.
Good old Tipton Arena.
Yeah, we played, and Bucky, Kelly Buckberger, and Ryan Smith was on the other team for this Braggers Cup. And back then, when you played summer hockey, you played like games to 5, right?
Okay.
So, and we'd have the ice for about an hour and a half, and maybe you'd get a couple games in. But for the Braggers Cup to play to 5, it took the whole hour and a half, because guys are blocking shots.
It was legit.
It was.
They
ridiculous.
wanted those bragging rights.
Bucky was running. Smitty was running. Bucky. There's other pros that were around. I think. Well, I'll tell them later. But it was an intense, and we won. And then we would go to billiard club afterwards with this cup. But it was funny because we were all celebrating, and the team that lost, only a couple guys would come because we were mad that they lost. So to see, and I mean, Ryan Smith, he was like, I played against him in junior, and he was a completely different player in the NHL than he was from junior. He was a perimeter player, setting up guys. You would Gretzky kind of like with how he played. He figured out how to play in the NHL and be successful, and it's unbelievable what he did. And I distinctly remember the game that set his career from maybe not making it to being basically one of a great NHL player. And we were in Tampa, and he was in and out of the lineup, and he hit a guy in Tampa Bay, and it very uncharacteristic from what I knew of Ryan Smith to blow up a guy with an open ice hit. And this, I don't know who he hit, but it was a yard sale. There were shin pads, there was skate laces. His equipment was all over the ice.
Something straight out of a cartoon.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And from that point on, he played a regular shift, and he just developed his game. And it was, if you look back at those old videos of corner battles with guys, there were two guys on the Oilers that other teams could never get the puck off of. One was George Larocque, just because he was about 250 pounds and he was just the strength of him. But the other one was Ryan Smith. Like, there was no other guy good as he was in the corners, getting pucks and coming out with it. And I hated like I love Ryan, but I hated him playing because in practice he would shoot the puck, and if I stopped it and the rebound went in the corner, he would go get the puck, come to the net, shoot it in, and go, yeah, and like give it like a pumpernickel. It was awful, to the point where if I stopped him and we were doing a drill in practice, I knew where the puck was because in my peripheral, I saw the puck and I saw him go get it. But we're doing a whole different drill, and he would go get the puck and try to shoot it. But I would be more focused on stopping him because I didn't want him to be happy that he scored the goal. That's the competitiveness of Ryan Smith. Like, he couldn't stop. And the amount of times I had to stay out with him with those tip drills, it's mind numbing how good he was. And I mean, a very slender guy, but he would position himself where you couldn't see anything, and he could tip with that. I mean, it's good on the North Saskatchewan River with a canoe, and it's also good for tipping pucks in the net. That thing, I don't know how he shot with it, but he could tip a puck, man. It was awful.
Oh,
the classic Smitty two-piece.
Yeah, the classic Smitty two-piece. I can't believe those guys use that thing. But man, he was what a great teammate. Like, if anyone could have a guy in whatever business they're in, like, to have a Ryan Smith on your team, man, that's I was fortunate enough to be part of what he's all about.
And back to your sort of, path here, you had kind of touched on your I guess return to the Oilers back in 2000, 2001, but maybe talk to us a bit about that, like the grind of kind of the ECHL, AHL back and forth for like, a few years there in the late 90s.
Oh man, that's a good question. That was tough. That was really tough because I had early success, right? So and being a young guy, I thought I had everything figured out, and really I didn't. And so there was can we say I had a poopy diaper for a little bit, so but and I bounced around. I was with Boston's farm team, Washington's farm team, Canucks farm team, like trying to figure myself out. But I go back to when I first went to Kamloops. Tom Rennie was the coach there, and he had followed my career, and he had coached won a Memorial Cup and coached in the NHL. And he again, I was on the verge of, do I keep doing this? And he gave me a call, and I went to Team Canada for a year. So, and we played everywhere: Japan, Russia, played in all the Spengler Cup, the Izvestia, well, it's Baltica now, Finland, Deutschland Cup, all these tournaments, and experiencing hockey throughout the world, and actually like really training like an Olympic athlete. But I mean, training's changed with the NHL players too, but right then I realized, God, I'm not scratching the surface of what I should actually be doing to be an NHL player. So and I mean, again, with the poopy pants thing, at the end of the year with Team Canada, I had a good year. I played in all these tournaments. I'd done quite well. I had actually had a contract solidified for the German league. And Scott Hausen, which you might remember, was a director of player personnel, assistant GM with the Oilers. And it was funny because my first year pro, Scott Hausen was the GM of the Cape Breton Oilers. So I had a relationship with Scott. And at the end of the year with Team Canada, I wanted to go to World Championships. And Tom Rennie said, Joaquin, you're my goalie to take, but you're my third goalie. I have to take two NHL guys. You won't see the ice. And I go, okay. But Hamilton, where I left the Oilers, with a bad taste in my mouth, not because of my own fault. I didn't play well, but I still, and they've come, they've watched, they want you to come for the last few games. They're in a playoff race, blah blah blah. And I didn't want to go. I really didn't. And then I said, you know what? If I'm not going to play at World Championships, I might as well go play some games. I'm going to Germany the next year anyway. It'd be fun to go back to the American League, see how I'm doing, and just measure myself. Maybe whatever happens. It doesn't matter. So I go back to Hamilton. We win a couple rounds and stuff, and we lost to Rochester, and so at the end of the year, you guys have all heard the trash bag kind of day where you go in, grab your stuff, and talk to the GM, say see you later. And so, but for me personally, I was like, I'm grabbing my stuff, going back to Calgary and going back to the coast or whatever. So, but trainer comes, hey, Joaquin, Scott wants to talk to you. Okay. So, and I had known Scott for a while, so I'm thinking, okay, this is cool. It felt good to me because I had left on such a bad note before, but we had done well. We made the playoffs in the last few games, got a couple rounds, and it was a nice feeling for me. And talking to Scott, who I had a relationship before, and I went in there and we talked and we laughed about former things, and then I'm leaving, and he goes, yeah, well, let's talk in the next few days. I think we want to sign you for next year. And I was like, okay, Scott, like, quit yanking my chain. Like, this was good. Why do you got to do this or whatever? And he's, no, we want to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, Scott, whatever. And I leave the room, and before you know it, my agent gets a call and goes, yeah, the Oilers want to sign you. So, and I had the deal in Germany, but you can't say no to the NHL,
Right.
So I made it back to the NHL. That was a very difficult thing to do. And I sometimes I tell myself this because as a professional hockey player, sometimes it's tough to, when you look back at your career and you look at your faults and things like that. Sometimes I look at it as a disappointment, right? But I have to remind myself of what I did at certain points. And that was a point where I had put in a lot of work and time to develop myself to get to a certain level. And I had actually gotten kicked out of the NHL and made it back for a year. So it was a very rewarding time for me personally when I signed that next contract.
And was it at that point where you're like, hey, you know what? I made it back. Now time to go kind of take a new sort of journey out in Europe, and you go to freaking Scotland of all places?
Well, I had in Team Canada, we had actually played at the place where I went. Okay. And I still thought I might sign with an NHL team at that point, and things start closing up in Europe. So I said, you know what? This place is kind of familiar. And at that point, NHL was different. American League was different. And the rosters at that point were a lot of college players, smaller players, but really quite skilled. And I was taken aback of how skilled that league actually was. And man, it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of fun away from the rink, but I ended up I won the Hart Trophy of that league that year.
Okay.
That's how fun that league was. So I managed to parlay that to the next year. I actually played in Stockholm, Sweden, and had a really good year there. I always say, just from personal experience, I'd played a ton of professional games. I really felt like my game was at a level where if I was facing a shooter coming down and they were taking a shot, I was probably going to stop them. And you have to be a little bit arrogant as a hockey player, but I didn't. It took a big effort to score on me at that point. I had confidence going. I was playing good. I played in the NHL a year before. I had won the Hart, and I had probably, I would say, 3.5 years of really being a really good goalie at that point. But I would say that was between 27 to 31 kind of thing. So that's how I kind of look at goalies. That's when they're really at their prime, because you've just faced so many shots, seen so much up to that point to get to a certain level that I mean, I always talk about the Oilers. That's who they should look at to be their next goalie, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Jake, have you ever had that kind of confidence as a goalie?
Oh, never. I've had stretches of like a game and a half where it's like last game, I'm like, okay, put up a 36 save shutout, going to the next game feeling good. And then one of my teammates just absolutely rips me apart in warm-ups. And I'm like, there's that gone. Yeah. I would say like I'm like the NHL goalie. They used to have the slider for consistency when you're doing a creative goalie. Mine was cranked all the way down to 0.
Oh, that's great.
I guess you go to Sweden after, you kind of touched on that. Like going to play in Sweden, what was that like? We've heard that, playing in places like Finland, it's hard if you're an import. But Sweden, like everyone speaks perfect English. Like, so what was it like to go play in Sweden like that?
Sweden was, I'd played I had kind of known what it's like playing in Europe. So with the language thing. So actually in my contract, I had it worked in where I wanted them to pay for Swedish lessons, like to learn how to speak Swedish. There were 3 imports on our team. There was a guy from Austria who went to Maine, so he spoke perfect English, and a Finn who he spoke English too, but it was kind of Essetiken and kind of English.
Broken.
So it was Finglish. So it took a while to understand him, but it was good because like I would take my dictionary to the grocery store, and I had written out a few phrases and I would butcher them to pieces, but they all spoke English. And if you ever get a chance to go to Sweden, I would say do it. But if you do that, like take a dictionary, have some phrases, and just butcher their language, they love it that you would actually make the effort to speak your language.
Okay.
It's really kind of weird because I remember when I played for Djurgården in Stockholm, and it's Matt Sundin's team where he played as a I think 13, 14-year-old. Anyway, we went to our golf tournament, and Matt's was still there because the season starts a little bit earlier. And so I'm walking up one green, and Matt's is still there, and Matt's comes over, and my first game, Matt's blew a couple through my 5-hole that game, and I'd played against Matt's a few times. Matt scored like 5 goals on me, which is odd, but I mean, I'm still kind of a hockey fan. So Matt Sundin is coming up to me, and I'm kind of, fanboying out a little bit and trying to keep it cool. And I was, hey, Joaquin, how you doing? And he said my name, right? So I'm like, but Swedes, there's a lot of Swedes that have my name. They spell it a little, maybe an M or whatever, Joaquin. And so and I was like, oh my gosh, he knows my name. And so we're talking, and he says, thank you so much for coming here and playing in Sweden. And I was like, what? Like, it didn't resonate with me, but he was actually happy that a Canadian guy came over and played in Sweden. He was happy about that, and especially on his home team. I was like, wow, and I was like, gosh, I gotta really do well here. Matt's wants me to be on his team. So it was a really cool moment to be with a Hall of Famer being happy that I played in Sweden. So it's and Swedes are like that. They love people coming to their country, and they'll always ask you, if you ever meet a Swede, and if you've been to Sweden, they'll say, how do you like it? What did you like about it? Like they're really proud about their culture. And I would say it's just like Canada, just they speak a little bit differently. Like it's very similar, and it was probably the most professional league that I played in besides the NHL. Like in playing in the minors, they treated it the exact same. From the moment I signed my contract, I had the trainers phoning me the next day with diagrams of how I wanted my gear, and it was unbelievable. And the Swedish culture is, if you ever get a chance, go to Sweden, especially in the summertime. It's, you go up north, it doesn't get dark. Guys go up there and they play golf at like, they have tee times at like 1:30 in the morning because it doesn't get dark.
Jake, I guess we're gonna have to make a Cold Hard Sports Talk trip out to Sweden now.
Man, our travel budget's going through the moon.
I know.
Now. We got to go to Australia.
Yeah, it's getting pretty pricey for us now. But one place that we've heard a lot about, and apparently that is quite fun, is Germany, where you went to play next. And I would assume on and off the ice, there was probably a lot of fun in your, I guess, 4 seasons in the country.
That Germany's, again, if you're ever traveling and going through, I mean, any European country, go see a hockey game. It'll blow your mind. Like
they're like soccer fans, right?
It's exactly the same. Like I played in Kassel for 3 years, and there's a section in the arena where it's just for the visiting fans. Like the normal home fans don't sit there, but that section is full every time for traveling fans, and they have their songs. And like, you can't, as a goalie, it was hard for me when I first went to Europe, because communication, right? Like time, wheel, saying these little sayings that I would always say in North America, and everyone in the rink would hear what I said. Guys, you couldn't hear what I said because it was so loud in these arenas. Like, I think in Kassel was like 7,000 people, and it was ridiculous the whole game. You couldn't hear a thing throughout the game. It's a way different atmosphere. And even, I always say, if people have the money and they want the ultimate hockey experience, go to Davos, Switzerland at Christmas time and watch the Spengler Cup. That you will never, aside from being at Game 7 overtime and a NHL team winning, I don't think you can duplicate that feeling beside the Spengler Cup over that 9 days of hockey. It's absolutely ridiculous. The whole town. I mean, it's a small village, and by, like, I think we get in there on Boxing Day. By the 27th, it's like 8 deep in the streets, shoulder to shoulder, and just teams chanting everything. 2 hockey games a day. And where you are with the mountains and the Clydesdale drawn carriages and the skiing and the food carts, it's
like something out of a movie.
You can't believe where you are, really. That would be, if you were a hockey fan and an ultimate hockey fan, go to the Spengler Cup.
Okay, well, there's another one. Just
another trip.
Put it on the trip.
Man, it's adding up real quick.
You're making our budgets go way up here.
Gotta sell some t-shirts, Matty B.
Yeah.
You know what? My wife says the same thing. Thanks.
And after a few years in Germany, you know, what kind of made you, A, I guess, stay there for so long, and then B, kind of pivot and then go to Italy?
Well, in Europe, there's breaks throughout the year. So during those tournaments, there's usually breaks. So we would plan trips. My wife, the cliche, I met her, I married a figure skater. Okay. So, she skated at the Glory Club for years, but she ended up going to Italy before I'd met her before, but she was in Italy coaching, Carolina Costner, who is the Italian national figure skating champ over the last 12 years as a young girl. So we would go to Italy to hang out and see her friends, and my career was winding down. The reflexes weren't as sharp.
Firmly in the back nine.
Yeah, I was yeah, definitely. Maybe maybe even full 16, 17 at that point. But I thought, you know what, let's see, maybe 1 or 2 more years. Let's go to Italy, and Germany was great. And the thing about Italy in that certain point, it's kind of like Quebec, where they all speak German. So after 4 years playing in Germany, I could go to a restaurant or the superstore or whatever and converse with people on that type of level, right? So it was nice for me. My wife spent 2 years there as an 18-year-old, so she spoke fluent Italian, and she's from here, so it was kind of the logical next step, just kind of end it in Italy. We were thinking of playing 1 more year and going back over there, but I had a young son at the time, and he was getting to the point where, you know what, it was more important for me to establish those relationships as a kid. And so I played 1 year in Brunico, which was, again, one of the most beautiful places on earth. We weren't supposed to ski, but I did pick up some skis there, and I could walk to the gondola from my house.
Holy crap! Yeah, that'd be pretty nice, eh?
Yeah.
And we actually just finished doing another player interview with a player who had recently played in Italy, and he said he's almost unable to eat pizza or pasta anymore just because it's ruined for him after having it in Italy.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible, because I had about 4 or 5 pizzerias right around my house.
Oh no.
And we would just walk around, and it's all those wood-fired kilns, right? And so it was glorious, man. It was really good.
Was there like a certain place and a certain like dish that was like your go-to?
Not really. It was everywhere. I mean, even after games in Italy, we would go to a restaurant, sit down, have a beer, have a pizza, relax. Like, it was, our games wouldn't start till like sometimes 9:45 because people were eating dinner, right? They were waiting to come there. So yeah, it was crazy, man. But what an atmosphere to be a part of. It was unreal.
I do want to kind of touch a little bit more on your Team Canada days. First off, just quickly, what was it just wearing the maple leaf? That must have just been obviously like a dream come true kind of thing, hey?
Oh man, yeah. That's next level stuff when you can wear the Canada colors and represent your country everywhere. That's another thing I wish everyone could feel part of in some aspect. Like, I was lucky enough to play on Team Canada. That was so cool, going to different countries, but even when I played in Team Canada, and we played Sweden hockey games, and I actually went back there a few years later and played for the team that played in the same building, and then being picked by Team Canada to represent your country, even though I wasn't on Team Canada, that was another thing to be part of. That was so cool, So it's funny, because when I played the last year that I played on Team Canada, that was the last year that they had an actual traveling men's team throughout the whole year. Now they just kind of pick guys to represent the country there. But that to go to Team Canada was kind of, at that point, was taking a step back from your career. It was like, oh, the NHL team doesn't want you. They probably want someone else in their system to progress. That's who they're playing in the American League. So it was kind of a wasteland for you at that point. But I would say, if without that year of playing on Team Canada in 1999, I wouldn't have been able to progress, to play on the Oilers the following year, or to have a successful year in Europe either, because it taught me a lot of things that I hadn't learned yet playing professionally.
Was there a favorite spot that stuck out to you when you guys were traveling around like that?
Oh man,
it's a tough question, I guess. Eh?
That's tough. I remember, well, we had been to different places in Russia and the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and the females were really attractive. They were,
Fair.
and it was like we were stunned by a lot of beauty, I would say. And I remember the one time where we went to Japan, and we had come back, and we were leaving for Sweden the next day. And with the jet lag, everyone was supposed to be sleeping and stuff. But my roommate and we said, well, let's go have a beer. We'll go out and stuff because I can't sleep. Okay. And we went into the bar, and our whole team is standing there.
Of course they are, right?
And I like, it was funny because we had been used to talking to these girls from different places and just stunned by their beauty. And I remember being at Cowboys, and we're around a bunch of beautiful Canadian girls, and there's guys like, this is brutal. That was so funny. I always remember that. Oh God, I got to get back to Europe to talk to some girls. It was, oh God, to be a young kid again. Jeez, crazy.
Oh man. Gage, I guess this is like one other question we like to ask all of our guests, and you kind of touched on the Braggers Cup a little bit. So we always ask our guests if you have any good trophy stories. We've heard, the WHL championship, it actually floats, things like that. So do you have any trophy stories, whether it's the Braggers Cup or any other sort of trophy stories?
Well, I'll have to go back to my year in Scotland, where the Belfast, like it, in the UK, it was the British Super League, but they kind of ran it like football or soccer, right? So there were
the regular season is what matters.
Yeah, so there was Champions League, kind of the league, like there was different cups that you could win throughout the league. So the Champions Cup was, we played lower divisions, and then it went up to the top, and Belfast Giants were really dominant throughout the year, and we were probably second, third place most year, but then Belfast, they just crushed everyone, and it got down to us in the final of this, not the league champion, but this other championship league that was throughout the UK, and we went into Belfast and we won the Champions Cup, and we hadn't beaten them all year. And then we went into Belfast and we crushed them. And from where I was playing in Ayr, Scotland, we took a ferry to Belfast. But after the game, we'd won the game when we were partying, and we get on the bus and we get back on the ferry to go back to Ayr, Scotland. And probably about 1,000 of our fans are on this ferry. So,
you got this trophy too, and
we have this trophy, like the Champions League trophy, and we've got conga lines going with this trophy. We're partying with everyone. We're giving, like, they set up like some sort of karaoke thing where I'm talking on the microphone to all the fans, and it was absolutely ridiculous what happened on that ferry after. It was the greatest party ever. And so the British League Champions Trophy was probably the best one I won, just because we won it, and it meant a lot because we beat a team that we hadn't beat all throughout the whole regular season, but because we could celebrate with the fans too, and that many people, it was crazy, man. It was crazy.
Love that. Woodsy, what else you got?
The last thing we like to ask kind of everyone is just, is there anything else? Is there any other career highlights, memorable moments that to look back on at the end of your career?
I actually do have one question real quick though. Craig McTavish, any good Craig McTavish stories?
Oh God. I do.
Okay.
But it's not the best one.
Oh, okay.
But I was always a little bit scared of Craig McTavish, right? So
naturally.
he so we would always get 2 tickets to games, right? So
Okay.
now I was a single guy at the time, and I had given 2 tickets to one girl I was kind of talking to, and she brought her friend, and I guess they dressed provocatively or whatever. You know, they were looking good or whatever. But what happened was I invited to the game where it was the wives' night. So what happened was
no.
when they showed their tickets, they got ushered into the wives' room. So all the all the girls were in the wives' room, and so everyone was asking, "Who are these girls?" "Oh, we're with Joaquin," and so they had a good time, which is great. You know, that's fantastic. They had a great time. So, but after the game or whatever, Doug Waite comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Gager, what girls do you invite to the game? You invited 2 girls?" And I go, "Yeah, man, I did." And he goes, "They're in the wives' room," and I'm like, "No," because Kevin Lowe's wife's in there, Craig McTavish's wife's in there, Charlie Huddy's wife's in there. So I'm inviting these 2 girls, and I guess I don't know, but I guess they had a pretty good time in there, and it was free booze, and they were cheering and stuff, being Oiler fans, you know. But I had brought them in there, not knowing it was wives' night. So, and it was kind of green light night too, and we had won. I forget who we played, and the next day of the practice was at the mall. So usually that's a sign to get after it. And so Doug Waite told me this. I went straight home after that game and like was in the fetal position in my bedroom, like going, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And so the next day we get to the mall, and I'm like first one there. Like I'm basically full dressed when everyone's getting to the rink, because I'm just scared, because all the wives were and I'm hearing all this and guys are talking. So, and we get onto the mall ice, and I'm skating around, and I'm like hugging the boards. I'm almost in the boards, and I see Craig McTavish kind of skate towards me, and it took him 2 laps to actually track me down, because and he finally just stopped, and he came across the ice, and he said, "Gager, had a couple girls in the wives' room last night." And I was like, "Coach, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was wives' night." He goes, "Don't worry about it. I heard it was a good time." So that was the one. I was so scared, and he was tracking me down actually on the ice at the mall to talk to me, but he was good with it. So.
Just bringing the girls to the wives' night.
Oh yeah, never again. It was always either my people that helped me out or old friends after that. No more gratuity tickets. I actually gave them to my wife, who I was trying to meet at the time, and she was working at Earl's. And years later, after being married, she told me, "Yeah, I gave those tickets to 2 other guys to give me a bigger tip." So she never even came.
Oh, and still together to this day.
Still together.
Joaquin, I appreciate the time, and this was a lot of fun. I mean, I will ask, do you have any other good stories that you want to tell us?
Yeah, we'll save it for another episode.
I think that's a good one to end on.
That's a great one to end on. Mac T giving you the gears. That's good. We appreciate you coming on. This was really a ton of fun, hearing the Oilers stories and just all the good stories. This is really a great time for us, and I hope you had fun too. Thanks for doing this, man.
Oh, thanks, guys. This is a pleasure. It's always nice to reminisce about how great I used to be. Because as I said, my wife reminds me of I'm not so great now.
Well, let's hope our listeners think you're great as well.
I
think they're
sure
going to enjoy this.
will.
All of our Edmonton folks.
At the very least, we think you're great, and that's worth something. Not much, but something.
Yeah. Thanks, boys.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right.
Have a good one.
Man.
Stay safe.
You too. Later.